It has been a football weekend and a strange one at that, both in college football and the NFL. We'll get into that more throughout the show. This is the Next Best Bet, episode 102. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy. As always, Brett, how's your weekend going?
Well, my Jets undefeated, so fantastic, right?
Now, for those that watch the video, though, I see that you're in a different location than normal. We got you out of New York.
Yeah, we did. I'm on Higgins time. Not full Pacific time, but Mountain time, Higgins. So I'm getting closer to you. We're still quarantining separately, but I'm out in Colorado. I'm able to bet from my couch. So this is pretty good, Higgins. Pretty good living out here.
Very nice, and we'll see how that does for you with your record. Going into hindsight with Higgins right now, I went 4-3 this past weekend. My NFL moneyline parlay hit with the Colts, Ravens, Packers, and Seahawks. That Raiders loss on Thursday night was a heartbreaker. I thought they were going to get that, especially in overtime when they got the ball first. My pick of the pod, Buffalo did not only not cover their 13.5 points, they lost to Ball State, giving
I,
away that MAC championship.
Hey, you can't be upset about that. Jarrett Patterson goes out of that game on a dirty play. A dirty play. I'm going to
Hmm.
say it if no one else will. I don't know if people have said it. I'm sure they have. But that was heartbreaking for, forget about backers, Buffalo fans, that team. You lose the leading rusher on a play that doesn't really belong in the sport. Just disappointing, Higgins. I wouldn't be too upset over that one.
It really was. But as we're recording right now on Sunday night, Brett, you still have a bet that's live.
I do. Always take a Sunday night football bet so your record doesn't go in the beginning of the show, right? That's the little trick here.
Why have I not learned this trait yet? For
I
some
don't
reason, I
know.
don't seem to keep doing it. And as of right now, it looks like you may get the win. The Browns are up 13-3 in the third quarter.
We'll
So
knock on
looking
wood.
like you might go 3-1.
Little knock on wood there. But yeah, the Patriots did not come home, Higgins. I think they surprised a lot of people on Sunday. Bill Belichick had a really impressive record, not only against rookie quarterbacks, but against former assistants of his. And not only that, he had an amazing record against left-handed quarterbacks. So Tua was basically batting 0 for 3 in this one, and they win by 10. So it doesn't really matter. They bucked all the trends, and uh, Northwestern was able to cover that football game, that Big Ten championship game. And my San Jose State Spartans proved that they should not be underdogs. Send them to the college football playoff, Higgins. Send them to the playoff.
Northwestern covered beside a record-breaking day by Trey Sermon and almost didn't cover. Trey Sermon got them knocking on the door down to the 4-yard line, and instead of punching it in, which day of that line reduced down to 18 and a half, and I had ended up jumping on Ohio State for that line. If the Ohio State Buckeyes had scored on that final drive there, they would have covered. You still would have been good on your 20 and a half there, but I would have ended up winning. Instead, knocking on the door, they ended up winning with class and not punching it in against Northwestern. But that was a very entertaining game for sure. Might have been one that you may have wanted to use our Beginners Boulevard, or even with this Browns game that's going on right now, Brett, cash out, as in cash out early, a way for bettors to settle a wager for a certain dollar amount before the event is over. This is a way to lock in a profit at a smaller value than the wager would ultimately pay, and it's a good term for Beginners Boulevard because you should know that you don't always have to wait until the game is done. A good thing to note with these, though, is typically you have to already be winning that bet to be able to cash out. You can't be losing and try to cash out early.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to do this, Higgins, is if you feel good on a lot of games early in the day, put them all in a parlay. Maybe a few of them hit early. The book gets a little nervous that, oh boy, this guy might be a little sharper than we thought, and maybe you can cash out and not have to sweat out all those late games. That's one way I like to do it for sure.
Parlays are great ways for cash outs, whether it be if you've gotten a few early wins, or even if you got a lot of teams playing around the same time, but they all look like they're going to be winning or look like they're going to be cashing out. You're right. The sports book sometimes gets a little nervous, and they offer you a reduced rate. Let's say you bet $10 to win 65. Maybe they'll give you $30 cash out early. Just say, hey, wipe your hands clean of this. Take it
Yeah.
now.
You don't need to sweat this one anymore. Here's $30. Go have some fun.
And when
Sometimes
you're a
it's
winner,
not.
you're a winner.
Yeah, sometimes it's not the worst thing to do to take it.
Speaking of when you're a winner, you're a winner. Let's jump into our NFL Monday Night Football. The Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Cincinnati Bengals. And Brett, I had a hard time looking at who's going to win this game or who's going to cover because of how the Steelers have played the past 2 weeks. I mean, they were 11-0, but they got two straight losses. I understand one was against a very talented Bills team, but their first loss was against a much less talented Washington football team that really put some concerns into the Steelers team. And now that they've lost two straight, I think they're going to respond with a win, but I don't know if it's going to be two scores.
Oh, I totally agree with everything you're saying, Higgins. Pittsburgh, I expect them to come out and win this football game. Cincinnati, whether it's Allen or Finley, has not been very impressive at all. I think, honestly, if anything, it shows how amazing Joe Burrow was in the beginning of the year. But Pittsburgh is going to come out strong. I'm going to take Cincinnati in this one on the spread because of like what you're saying. Pittsburgh, they get up early and they can't sit on their lead because they can't run the football. They have to pass. It's been a trend the last really month of the season, but come to notice the last 2 weeks in these losses where James Conner's been nowhere to be found. Jalen Samuels
Snell
has
can't
been,
get the job
I
done.
mean, it's like they've been throwing anyone they can out there to try and get it working. And it just has not worked. So I'm actually going to wait on this line a little bit, Higgins. It's 14 right now. I would take Cincinnati at 14, but I think Pittsburgh, like I've talked about with the Yankees, like I've talked about with the Dallas Cowboys, America likes the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think I might be able to finagle another point here if I wait to bet it before kickoff on Monday night. So I'm going to say this. I like Pittsburgh at 14 right now. I would take it, but I'm going to be aggressive because I'm only in Colorado for a week, Higgins, and I can only do this so many times. I'm going to hold on and try and get that plus 15 tomorrow out here in Colorado.
That's risky. That's
It's
risky. But
risky.
you know what? I'm going to be waiting until tomorrow to place my bet as well because I'm going to be on the over under, which is set at 40 right now. And if you look at the last time these two teams played, Joe Burrow was in the game, and that over under was at 46. It was a push. So take 6 points away with Joe Burrow. Sounds about right. It's at 40. Could be a push again, but you know what? Both of these teams have hit the under in their past 4 games. And I'm waiting till tomorrow because I need to see if the forecast is right. Because right now, Cincinnati's calling for rain. Not just at night, but during the day as well. And if that's the case, Pittsburgh's got a great defense. We've talked about how they can't run the ball. If you try to pass the ball in the rain, it gets a little bit of spotty, and who knows if that's going to work out. So under 40, it's a low over under. It's definitely already set there because of the forecast. So I don't think if it does rain tomorrow that it's going to get much lower. So I'm going to wait and see if that weather is actually what it's saying it's going to be. But right now you have me sitting on the under 40.
I like that. My nightmare scenario is Ryan Finley trying to move the ball at the end of the game and a pick six or something like that. That's my nightmare with the over under in that one, which is why I'm staying away. But like you, I saw that under and I was like, that under is definitely in play in the rain on Monday night.
And I'll tell you, at least according to the Oregon scoreboard sports book, they expect Finley's going to be the starting quarterback because there are player props for him, and they don't expect him to throw over 200 yards in the game.
Well, poor Ryan Finley, man. What did you do to deserve this on this show?
You're right. I think we should move on. Maybe talk about some college basketball because there's an interesting slate of that going on Monday night. How about that?
All right, let's do it. Well, I've got some interest in St. Joseph's out of Pennsylvania versus Tennessee. They're making them the trip to Knoxville. Tennessee's 22-point favorites. I'm a big fan of St. Joseph's coach Billy Lang. I worked with him briefly with the Sixers. We overlapped there. I think he'll get the job done at St. Joseph's. I really do. He's got a college background, been at Nova, been a head coach at Navy. So I think he'll get the St. Joseph's program back to respectability. just not this year, Higgins. I'm going to take Tennessee minus 22 at home. I think the number's big. It's going to scare some people off, but Tennessee's honestly a top 10 team. St. Joseph's still rebuilding.
Well, just to note for you, Tennessee is a perfect 4-0 against the spread this year, so that should be comforting to you. However, St. Joseph's most recent game was against Villanova. The spread was exactly the same, 22 points, and St. Joe's lost by 20. So they
Yeah,
were able to eke out that 22 it's one of those odd numbers. It's a little high, it's a little up there.
yeah. I mean, St. Joseph's Nova, for those that aren't familiar, I know you're from Pennsylvania, Higgins, so you know Big
Yes.
Five basketball, but Big Five basketball is tough. Those games are close. Like, that really, although Nova is probably even better than Tennessee, that wouldn't really concern me because there's so much pride in those games. They're usually played at the Palestra. I don't know if that's going on this year because of COVID reasons or, what they're doing, but um, s- I
They
kind
do
of
fight
throw
to the
that one
bitter end.
out. I just kind of throw out that Nova game as you know what? Those are two schools that are separated by a few miles. The kids probably grew up playing against each other their whole lives. Like, it's a rivalry game. There's some bad blood, especially when you're playing a team cross city.
Hey, that's a very good point. Just something that I thought was
I
worth
think it's
bringing up in
fair.
this scenario. Absolutely. I'm going to go with a different route. Southern Illinois versus Butler. Now, who's Southern Illinois? Most people probably haven't watched Southern Illinois if they're going to be betting on this game. If I'm being honest, I haven't watched Southern Illinois. I'm going straight off the stats with this game. But I'm going to take them plus 9.5 against Butler because Butler has not covered a spread yet, people. They haven't. It's that simple. Meanwhile, we have a Southern Illinois team that's 5-0, and they've covered every spread.
Well, that's
So,
simple math. That's pretty easy right there, Higgins. You laid it out.
so I'm going to ride with the team that seems to cover. I don't know. Maybe they're probably going to get their first loss here, but 9.5 points against a team that has covered every single game so far. I'm going to put my confidence there with the Salukis, I
Yeah, the
guess is what
Southern
they're called.
Illinois Salukis. Yeah, hell yeah. Oh, I like it, Higgins. You laid out great numbers there, and you know what? You convinced me to take it, but then I was like, nah, Higgins deserves that W, so I'm gonna stay off that one because that was a convincing stat. 5-0 versus the spread versus 0-5. Why not?
And then I have one more college basketball game that I'm gonna be on. Tulsa versus Memphis. Now, Memphis 5-3. They're supposed to be a good program. Penny Hardaway's coaching again with them this year. Tulsa 2-3. They're 0-1. It's a conference game between these two. But if you look at how these two teams have played recently, Memphis hasn't been able to cover a spread. They're 2-6 against the spread this season, including losing their past four straight. Meanwhile, Tulsa, they cover every other game, so I'm thinking they're going to cover this game, even though they covered last game. I think they're going to buck that trend a little bit. +7. This should be an interesting game, should be a close game, but I think seven's just a little too much points, so you're going to find me with Tulsa here.
Yeah, I didn't really know too much about this matchup, mostly because I don't know much about Tulsa, to be honest. But Memphis is an intriguing team. They like to get up and down, fast pace. So there will certainly be opportunities for both these teams to score. So maybe even the over under is in play at 137 there. I'm not suggesting anyone go take that because I don't know that much about the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes, I believe.
The
But
Golden Hurricanes, yes.
there we go. But yeah, but that would, based on how Memphis gets up and down quickly, I think 137.5 might actually be in play.
Just so you know, though, Brett, so far, Memphis this season, 6 of their unders have hit.
Hmm. Well, that seems to be a trend too. I've noticed a few unders have been coming in. I'll have to keep my eye on that.
Yeah, so Tulane +7, Southern Illinois +9.5. I'm going with a couple underdogs in some Monday night basketball, but I think we're going to be in a good spot. I think they're giving up a little bit too much points.
Yeah,
Little too much.
I love that Southern Illinois nugget. That's a good nugget, Higgins.
Well, let's talk about something that might you might not like as much, might be a little more painful. This Jets Rams game is gonna be our money line magic, Brett, and the talk of the town has been how the Jets were hopefully going to go winless and potentially draft Trevor Lawrence with the number one overall pick, or even Justin Fields, whoever they would prefer. But the Jets did something interesting today, Brett, and that is they started off a game really hot with Sam Bradford at quarterback, didn't they?
Darnold.
Sorry, Sam Darnold, not Sam Bradford.
Yeah,
Who am
stop
I
making
talking
us
about?
work. We're bad enough. We don't need to get worse. Okay. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've been part of bad teams. Not that the guys were bad or they didn't work hard, we just didn't have wins, right? And you're a losing team and everyone's down on you and you're going through coaching changes. I've been through it in the NBA, and it is a tough work environment, and honestly, you need every win. So I'm thrilled for the players and the coaches, not named Adam Gase, who won this game, because I've been in their shoes and I know what it's like. That being said, as a fan of this football team, Higgins, it was tough to take. That was a brutal one. I'm very glad my fiance is from Buffalo, so if I ever have a kid, we can raise them Bills fans, and they won't have to sit through this hell that is Jets football. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'm excited for 2021. Frank Gore running behind the best O line in football. I don't know. That's what I'm rooting for now. Give me 5 yards per carry, Frank Gore in 2021.
Yeah, this is a bit of a non-traditional money line magic. I mean, the Jets, they led the entire game. They came out, they got a touchdown to start the game. They ended up 13-3 up by halftime. The Rams did try to push back in the third quarter, but after scoring one touchdown, the Jets did kick a field goal to make it 23-10. And then in the
Higgins,
fourth,
it was
what
so
was that?
depressing. I was watching I was waiting for the Rams to get to plus money, and I was going to bet them. I was like, the Jets are going to blow it. It's so easy. The Rams never got to plus money. And then Jared Goff threw the interception with 4 minutes left, and the Rams finally got to plus money. And I'm like, I'm not betting that. That was the game. Like,
Yeah,
I was
so
waiting. I was waiting. I was like, come on, plus money, plus money, plus money.
yeah, the Rams they tried to push back and they got really close. In the fourth quarter, they scored a touchdown, they kicked a field goal, and they're down by just a field goal, and they have the ball with 5.5 minutes left, and they go 5 plays, 6 yards, but they decide to go for it on 4th and 4 from the Jets' 37-yard line. That's a 52-yard field goal. Is there not the confidence in a kicker to tie it up there? 4th and 4, I don't know. I understand. There's a lot more people going for it on fourth down now.
Yeah.
Sabermetrics says fourth and short.
I
It's
mean,
worth going for. Fourth and
honestly,
four seems a little too far to go for it for me.
yeah. I mean, it wasn't like their offense was so fantastic all day. I don't know. There were some weird calls. I mean, even I don't want to get too far ahead of you, but the Jets made some gutsy calls that they normally don't make. Like Adam Gase has been punting on fourth down all the time. Today he decides to go for it. What?
Yeah, the Jets then get the ball back with 4 minutes left, and they go 8 plays, 18 yards to finish off the drive and win the game. So now, very interestingly, the Jets are tied with the Jacksonville Jaguars uh, for the worst record in the NFL. However, the Jaguars have the easier strength of schedule, meaning that they have the tiebreaker and would get the number one overall pick. So when it rains, it pours. The Jets, even when they win, they can't catch a win.
I mean, I'm so confused about this tiebreaker thing because I'm pretty sure I have to really dig deeper because I'm like 99% sure the number 7 pick in last year's draft was determined by a coin flip. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I assumed that was what was going to happen this year. And everyone's like, no, strength of schedule. I'm like, So these two teams that were picking at 7 and 8 last year had the exact same strength of schedule. Like, I just was this a tiebreaker because of COVID? I have to do more research on it because it really confused me. I could have sworn I watched, not watched, I heard about
No,
a
that did
coin
happen.
flip.
That did happen. I remember. But Brett, I really don't want you to worry because the Jaguars and the Jets still have 2 games left,
Thank
and
God.
Minshew Magic is going to save the Jets.
I
It's
I
gonna
I
happen.
my Henry
It's
Ruggs jersey's on the way. My Minshew is in the cart. I'm ready. I'm ready. I am the biggest Bears fan in the world next, or I'm sorry, I'm the biggest Jaguars fan in the world against the Bears next week. I hope they start Nick Foles because Mitchell Trubisky has the Bears clicking. Clearly, they never should have benched him. He was undefeated when they took him out, and he hasn't lost since they put him back in. So he's been pretty good.
However, how on brand would it be for the Jets to win their next 2 games and get the number 3 pick behind the Bengals?
Frank Gore, 2021, Frank Gore.
I think that's plenty of our money line magic, though. I've made you suffer enough, Brett. How about that?
Yeah, thanks.
But today's episode is brought to you by Fanatics. Fanatics is the world's largest collection of official fan gear from all the league teams and players you love. If you enjoy our show and are looking to buy a new jersey, sweatshirt, or hat, you can support us by going to podgo.co/fanatics and getting 25% off your next order. That's podgo.co/fanatics. Fanatics officially licensed everything, and like Brett said, he already has his Minshew jersey in the cart.
My Minshew jersey's in the cart. I might even get a 2021 Frank Gore Jets jersey, you know?
Well, Brett, the NBA is about to start back up, and like we've talked about, you've been in that, and we're about to get to that, but real quick, it's a quick turnaround for bowl season this year because of coronavirus and everything. It was just the conference championship games this past weekend, and we already have games starting off on Monday.
Yeah, on Monday, App State takes on North Texas. And then we start to get the two-a-days, Higgin. Tuesday, we got Tulane, Nevada, UCF, BYU. Wednesday, La Tech, Georgia Southern, Memphis, Florida Atlantic. So just a little appetizer. But the only game I really like here, Higgins, is
The only
UCF
game
versus.
either of us really like.
Oh yeah, that's a better way of putting it. The only game we like is this UCF BYU game because let's face it, there's a lot of sports going on this week, and you want to bet on all of it, but you have to practice bankroll management. So we're gonna do that and
Yes.
only bet on one college football game in the early week, and that's BYU UCF. I see you're on the over under. I'm on a team, so I'll just kick it off here, Higgins. I like BYU -6.5. I think this is going to be their first nationally televised game since Coastal Carolina. I think they're going to come out with a little chip on their shoulder. Zach Wilson wants to go in the first round of the NFL draft. This is your chance to go out there and play a pretty respected opponent and put up some good numbers. So I expect BYU to come out with a little oomph in this one. When sometimes you see in these bowl games, you could get mixed emotions from teams. I expect BYU to come out pretty focused.
I agree with you on this. If you weren't on BYU spread, I would have been, but out of respect to the Pillars, I found a different way on this game,
Thank you.
and I ended up taking the under 71.5 because if you look at this over under, it's really gonna go one or two ways. If you think UCF is gonna win, and the way UCF's played their games is how it's gonna go, then the over is gonna hit because UCF plays a fast-paced offense. Dylan Gabriel, very high octane quarterback. They've continued that offense since Scott Frost has left that program. They're averaging 44 points per game. BYU is averaging 43 points per game, but their defense is stopping basically everybody. So, and especially recently, they haven't been scoring to that 43 points per game that they have been expecting to. So, an over under at 71.5 that's sitting so high, I think in order for that over to hit, UCF would probably end up being the winner of that, and it would be a race between the two of them. I could be wrong. BYU could still come out as a winner between the race between the two of them, but I think if BYU is going to win this game, their defense is going to play a big part in stopping Gabriel in that offense. So I'm going to take the under as a way to show my support for the Cougars.
I like it. Well, I'm excited for that game on Tuesday, Higgins. It's of all the early bowl games in the early week, it's definitely the one that caught my eye.
Yeah, and if we're being honest, that's probably the only of these early bowl games that we mentioned that I'm going to be willing to watch. However, that has some very interesting conflicts against it. That game kicks off at 4 p.m., and if you look at the NBA, they tip off on Tuesday as well, and they tip off a little bit earlier with the Golden State Warriors and Brooklyn Nets tipping off around 4 o'clock as well. So that is going to be a time conflict. Luckily, I have two screens on my computer, so I think I'll be able to watch both, but I'm not going to be on that Brooklyn game.
Yeah, well, and also the other nice thing is a basketball game takes about 2 hours, but a college football game like 5 to 6 days. So you'll have a few days to catch up.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely, you're right.
you mentioned Warriors Nets, and honestly, I don't think the NBA could have a better opening night than Warriors Nets Clippers Lakers. That sounds pretty good to me.
For sure.
And we'll start off with the first game, Warriors Nets. The Warriors go all the way to the East Coast. Steph Curry is back. Kevin Durant is back. Kyrie Irving back, probably with Sage. I don't know. It's his home arena, so maybe he doesn't Sage it. But I'm excited to watch this one. Golden State's got Weissman, the rookie, out there that's going to be good. Oubre's on their team. Wiggins. They are making a lot of changes, but I don't think they're making as many changes as the Brooklyn Nets have made since the last time they played basketball. Kyrie Irving wasn't in the bubble. DeAndre Jordan wasn't in the bubble. Kevin Durant wasn't in the bubble. I mean, you want to talk about all these players that are Torian Prince. The list goes on and on and on. And
then you can go to coaching staff too, with Steve Nash.
Exactly, Higgins. And what I'm looking for in these early games is consistency. And again, the Golden State Warriors, not the model of consistency, but you're bringing back the MVP, playing with Draymond Green, playing with a young rookie who's basically only played with Steph and Draymond Green in his NBA career in practice. So that's all he knows. Steve Kerr, I just like that there's some similarities there. So I'm going to take the Warriors +6 in this one. They may not win, but I expect them to cover. And you know what? Worst case, I'm taking the best shooter in basketball to cover a 6-point game. Like, it feels like a decent bet.
I agree. I couldn't get a read on this game, and I kind of wanted to watch it purely out of entertainment. The only thing that would make this Warriors Nets game any better is if Klay Thompson hadn't torn his Achilles, unfortunately. He was expected to be back with Steph Curry at the start of the season. That would have made this Warriors team even more interesting to watch with those pieces that you mentioned of Oubre, Wiggins, Wiseman. But I think that game's going to be fantastic. I think Kevin Durant facing off against his old team, there will be some special chippiness there. Who knows who's going to cover him? Is it going to be Weissman? Is it going to be Wiggins? Is it going to be a combination of Draymond getting up in his face? Probably a bit of everybody getting their chance at covering Kevin Durant, if I have to imagine. But being on the West Coast like I am, that game taking place while I'll still be at work at 4 p.m., I'm going to save my bankroll for the 7 p.m. game that I can make sure that I'll watch. And that is between the Clippers and the Lakers. And I'm kind of on the same note as you, Brett, with the fluidity from last year to this year, the continuity of all of it. And I understand Ty Lue was under Doc Rivers and was a part of their program last year, but they that team, that Clippers team, I don't have the confidence in them necessarily. They really spiraled out of control last year, and they got to prove to me that that locker room is okay, to be honest. So Lakers -2. Anthony Davis just got paid. Kyle Kuzma just got paid today. He just got a 3-year, $40 million deal on Sunday. You think that's not going to have him a little happy to go play tomorrow? Not to mention the Lakers added a few extra pieces of players like Schrader and things like that. I just think the Los Angeles Lakers are going to come out a little hot. I will say, though, Brett, I don't think it's going to happen necessarily in these early games, but I am worried for some of these bubble teams, especially like the Lakers and the Heat. that played into the finals and how short of a window this offseason was for some of these players to recoup.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, Higgins, and something we all have to consider. I think another thing that we'll have to consider that we as basketball bettors are not accustomed to, but you might be if you are accustomed to betting baseball or football or one of these other sports is in the bubble there were no positive tests, but I don't expect that to be the case this year with teams traveling from city to city, place to place. So we may even see a situation similar to football, Higgins, where you and I might be like, "Whoa, let's take a step back. Let's wait till game day, and we'll bet on game day when we have all the information." But there's definitely a lot of stuff to consider in the early season. I think you hit the nail on the head.
And something that we've seen with the NBA more and more recently, MLB more and more recently, rest days for how rigorous their schedules are, considering how little of recoup time that some of these players had because of the shortened off season. Do we see LeBron take more rest days in the beginning of the season? Do we see Jimmy Butler taking more rest days and things like that as they ramp up through December and January to get ready for that 2021 push? All of these are going to be interesting factors that we're going to see how each coach individually handles it. It's going to obviously be a program by program situation, I think. But there's a lot of different factors with this NBA season that we have to consider, like you mentioned, compared to that bubble finish that we saw this past fall.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned our guy's going to sit. Well, on Wednesday, the Knicks play the Pacers, Higgins. Tom Thibodeau will play his guys 48 minutes. He does not care. He'll play in a 48-minute game. He'll play him 50 minutes if he could.
Well, the
But
Knicks weren't in the bubble, so they had plenty of time to
they,
rest.
you know what? That's another good point. And the Pacers were. So this will be a great, interesting look at how teams out of the bubble compared to teams that played in the bubble early season. Um, but sticking on our consistency thing, Indiana switched coaches this year, but their starting five is going to be the exact same as last season. So going into this one, Indiana was the 4 seed or the 5 seed in the East last year. 8.5 points at home versus the Knicks seems like a layup to me, Higgins. Now, again, new coach for the Knicks too, but you're bringing back 5 starters. I got to like you opening night.
Now, just so we know, though, the Knicks did show some early chemistry in their preseason with Obi Toppin joining R.J. Barrett and crew. They did have a comeback win. I forget who it was, but they celebrated an unexpected win. It wasn't that Cavs win, was it? That's not what I'm thinking about for Friday.
No, they played pretty well. Manuel quickly played pretty well, but rotation switch in the regular season, like Emmanuel quickly will not be playing 25 minutes a night for the Knicks. And that's not disrespectful to him. That's just you're a rookie. You had the shortest offseason in NBA history. Like you literally got drafted, went to training camp, and a week later you're tipping off the season. Like, I mean, it was so quick for these guys. There's going to be some ramp up time. Now obviously Obi Toppin, he's going to get his chance to play because
Yes.
he was picked very high, but I expect a lot of Austin Rivers in there for the Knicks. I expect maybe Dennis Smith Jr. will get run over Emmanuel quickly. So, and Kevin Knox played very well in the preseason too. It'll be interesting to see what his role is because Nick signed some guys in the offseason. I'm just not sure what the Knicks rotation is going to look like, is basically my point here. And I am sure what Indiana's is going to look like, and I like their rotation.
Hey, that confidence means a lot in knowing who's going to start a game, absolutely. I'm going to be looking at a game between two teams in green, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics. And I brought up this point with the Lakers about being motivated after you get paid. Well, Giannis just got paid big time. He got the Supermax. And the Bucks are only 2.5 point favorites over the Celtics. Now, the Celtics, they bring back a very experienced starting five now with Brad Stevens again. Not a lot of pieces moved except for Gordon Hayward going down to Charlotte necessarily. But I think Milwaukee should still be the favorite here. I think that they should still win this. I am going to wait until the day of to place this bet on Wednesday, though, because as of right now, Giannis is listed as day to day. If he's not in that game, I'm not placing that bet. It's just that simple.
Yeah, it might make sense to go to the other side.
Yeah.
So I would say that's a good that's a good idea, Higgins. Yeah, Milwaukee's an interesting team this year. I like the addition of Drew Holiday, so we'll see how the Bucks look. Boston again lost Gordon Hayward, but it was kind of tough to get him the appropriate amount of minutes anyway with Jalen Brown and Marcus Smart and Jason Tatum. It's like so many riches. It's a joke.
It's also hard to quantify that loss because Gordon Hayward had spent so much time injured that he never really got integrated back into that rotation well. Obviously, now he also broke a finger down in Charlotte. Unfortunately, the man can't stay off the IR, unfortunately. But I don't think Boston's going to really skip a beat too much without him just because they were used to having to game plan without him.
No, I agree 100%. I think that's a totally fair point. One more game I'm interested in, Higgins. I'm going to call this one the Battle of James Harden, even though it really has nothing to do with him. It's Wizards Sixers, and the reason it's the Battle of James Harden is because Ben Simmons may be traded for James Harden. That's a rumor, and Russell Westbrook was traded because James Harden was tired of playing with him. So this is the James Harden game, and honestly, I've been around guys. I've been around guys when there's uncertainty about the trade deadline. You're like, oh, am I going to be here all year? Do I really want to fully commit? I'm not going to say that's going on in Philly, but I'm not going to back them minus 7.5 on opening night. They could very
Especially
well
with a
beat.
new coach.
Yeah, exactly. Doc Rivers comes in, new offense. They bring in a lot of players. Seth Curry, for instance. A new player, Dwight Howard's there now. So new faces. It's just too many points to lay. I think Washington will keep this close. Washington has two elite players. They have Westbrook, they have Beal, they can score with anyone. That's not to say they'll win the game, but to keep it within 4 possessions, Higgins, that seems within reason.
I'm very interested in this game. I'm very interested to see how the Sixers start to mesh together with the new coach and new pieces they brought in. I'm also very interested to see how Russell Westbrook's next chapter goes. We saw him very active during preseason, whether he was suited up or not. He was holding the clipboard and coaching. He was dishing the ball out to Bradley Beal when he was playing. Seems like he is happy in Washington now to be out of Houston. Is there still going to be some time before the pieces kind of fit together there, though, with him and Bradley Beal? I don't know. There's too many questions with that game on both sides for me, so I'm staying away. But I'm probably intrigued enough that I will be at least tuning into that game for parts of it, flipping around, watching a bit of it.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, it'll be fun to watch Russell Westbrook run up and down and attacking Joel Embiid all night.
Yes, yes, those two have a very fun, interesting history. Absolutely.
Yeah, but there's still more games, Higgins. We got 3 more games to talk about. Where do you want to go? Pistons, Timberwolves, Hawks, Bulls, Mavs, Suns?
Let's talk about the Timberwolves and their number one pick and see how Anthony Edwards is going to go over there.
All right. Well, Minnesota plays Detroit. Minnesota's a 5.5 point favorite. You can find me on that line. And again, consistency. Minnesota, same coach. Detroit, same coach. But Detroit added a lot of front court players this offseason. Jeremy Grant, our guy, Syracuse, shout out you. $19 million a year for our guy. So everyone should go to Syracuse. You get a lot of money. Um, then Mason Plumlee also came over. They traded Bruce Brown in the backcourt and actually waived the guy they got back for him. So like I don't really know what is happening in Detroit right now. It seems a little bit messy to me. And Minnesota, like you said, they added the number 1 overall pick. They added D'Angelo Russell at the deadline last year, who's best friends with Karl Anthony Towns. I think they're moving in the right direction. I'm not ready to put them in the playoffs in the West this year. That's a big jump, but I like the direction Minnesota's heading, and I think Anthony Edwards will be an impact player for them. LaMelo Ball's impressed me. I would say he's probably my favorite for Rookie of the Year right now, but Anthony Edwards is going to be in that conversation the entire year.
Karl Anthony Towns is probably the most heavily affected NBA player in terms of the coronavirus impact on this man's family. I believe it was 6 or 7 family members have caught it, if not died from it.
His mother
But
passed. Yeah, it was very
yeah,
tragic.
his mother passed, I know, and I know that was before the bubble, and since then, other family members have also caught it. So hopefully, he can leave those issues off the court and focus on the court. It'll be very interesting to see how this Timberwolves team kind of tries to rebuild, though, after having that #1 pick with Anthony Edwards. I made the joke to you before the podcast, though. Detroit, they added a lot of pieces, though, but they probably have the strongest roster considering they were willing to cut LiAngelo Ball. So I would be worried about that, Brett. They were that confident. They cut LiAngelo Ball. So
You're right. I only mentioned LaMelo Ball. That was rude of me. LiAngelo,
yes.
you deserve a mention too.
Well, I'm going to be on one more NBA game, and that's going to be the Atlanta Hawks versus the Chicago Bulls. And Atlanta has a lot of pieces. This is the one spot that I'm probably going against the narrative of what we've talked about of the consistency and continuity from last year to this year. Atlanta's bringing in 3 new starting pieces. They got Clint Capella last year in a trade deadline switch with Houston. So they're still building that starting roster, absolutely. But after the trade deadline, Atlanta was one of the best teams to bet on the spread last year. And Chicago was not a very good team to bet on the spread last year. And I'm not very confident that they'll be a very good team to bet on the spread this year. So someone's got to win that game. I think it's going to be by more than 2 points. So I'm going to take Atlanta -2. And that's that pick is probably the one that I'm least confident about on this podcast so far, Brett. But Atlanta played so well last year, and I'd rather take Trae Young over anyone that the Chicago Bulls have.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically Trae Young and John Collins versus Wendell Carter and Zach LaVine. It's more or less a glorified 2-on-2 game. But I mean, I guess Markkanen and Capella are out there as well. So 3-on-3, we'll call it. And
3v3.
yeah, I think everything you said is fair, Higgins. I think Atlanta is the better team than Chicago. I think, yeah, they have more moving parts on the court, but Chicago got a new head coach this year. So Atlanta's, still running the same plays, and they actually still have the same guy running those plays on the court. So that's helpful too. Trae Young can make sure those guys are in the right position. He should know the playbook very well. So I think Atlanta is definitely the right side here. But yeah, it bucks our trend a little bit of staying on the team that, you've seen play together once or twice.
Absolutely. I just had to mention it considering we've been following this trend rather clearly throughout this NBA segment, and then I had to buck it a little bit for this Hawks pick.
Hey, I can't hate it. Can't hate it. When the line's there and it looks good, you have to take it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the case with this next one, isn't it?
Absolutely, 100% the case with the next one. I heard a little rumor that Oregon is offering Dallas at +100 on the money line. And
That
I
is
have a
true.
friend that lives in Oregon.
That is also true.
So I might have to hit him up and be like, hey, I might need to live in Oregon for a day. But I love the Mavs at +100. Currently at Colorado on the money line, they're -110. So FanDuel in Colorado has it as a true pick 'em right now as we're recording. But Higgins has a little bit better odds. So I'm going to go to my buddy Higgins, take Dallas +100. I can very easily see a world where Luka Doncic takes home the MVP, and it might as well start tomorrow or on Wednesday night.
Well, since you brought that up, I'm kind of curious. Are there futures out for that yet?
Yeah, he
Yes,
is the
there are.
favorite.
Luka is the favorite at +400, with Giannis right behind him at +500 and Steph Curry at +750 in third. Then Anthony Davis edges out LeBron at fourth with +800, and LeBron's the fifth at +900. Some interesting value there.
If I were to place a wager today, Anthony Davis at +800 is no doubt one unit. I would play it. I'd hold it. I'm not willing to do that because I don't keep that much bankroll in my account at all times where I could just sit on a full unit for a season. But that would be my advice. I think it's AD's year. I mean, the dude's coming off a championship. He was definitely the finals MVP last year. I know he took it home, but like it wasn't really a conversation. I know there was, oh, are they really not going to give it to LeBron? Yeah, AD was better. And I think it's his time, and it also helps when you play on a team in LA. I mean, not to be rude, but it does help.
Well, speaking about playing on a team in LA, Kawhi's at plus 1,400. He's listed below Damian Lillard, and right after him is Jason Tatum. So he's sitting at
Well,
about eighth or ninth.
I could give you a hint as to why, because you
Whoa,
mentioned it. You mentioned it earlier in the podcast. This thing called rest days, Higgins. Kawhi takes a lot of those.
makes sense. Yeah, that makes
It's
sense.
going to be tough to win when you only play like half the season.
Yeah. Well, let's get into our Levy locks and pick of the pods, Brett. And I tried my best last week with that MAC championship, but once again, you have the honors.
You know, the MAC championship, I'm still upset about it because I love Jared Patterson that much. Like, it's just to end his college football career like that is just disgusting to me. But I digress. I'm going to make my Levy lock this Mavs money line. We mentioned it. Luka's the favorite to be the MVP right now. Well, if you're going to be the favorite, you better play well on opening night. I expect the Mavs to play well and to take care of business on the money line. I only need them to win by 1.
And I am going to stay in the NBA as well, but I'm going with a Tuesday night opening night game, Lakers -2. I think that there's just questions with the Clippers and how they ended their playoff season without Doc Rivers as their head coach. The Lakers, meanwhile, riding the high of their most recent championship. AD signed a new deal. Kyle Kuzma signed a new deal today on Sunday, so I think the Lakers just have a little bit more to play for, and a 2-point game should be entertaining, should be close, but I think the Lakers come out with the win in this one.
Makes sense.
But we'll have some other picks throughout the week. Make sure to follow us on social media at NBBpod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel where you can catch out our videos as well. This has been episode 102 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you again on Christmas Eve.